Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're listening from. It's Friday. We've made it. Welcome to She Rocks. My name is Amy Vaughn, and I am the CEO of an amazing organization called Together Digital, an organization helping women to support women from across the country. Right now, strictly through digital and programs like this. She Rocks is our weekly opportunity to take some time for ourselves and talk about the kinds of things that we need to talk about, not just in things that pertain to digital and the work that we do, but also in life. This month, as many of you know, is Women's Month. So we've been focusing on a lot of things for mental and physical health for women. We need to be able to show up whole wherever we go, whether that is at work or at home, which in a lot of cases for many of us right now is both. So I'm excited to have all of you here. If you have never heard of our organization before and you're interested in learning more, check out our website, www.togetherindigital.com. We offer a first month free of membership. We have an amazing online community through Slack that lets you come with any sort of ask that you need, as well as the ability to give back to other women, and as well as to learn and increase your knowledge on all things digital, whether that be design, SEO, strategy, e-commerce, CRM, social, you name it. We nerd out about all those things. But like I said earlier, today we're going to be nerding out just a little bit differently. And I think there's something about this whole conversation and the fact that we're streaming it on YouTube and Facebook and especially LinkedIn that I'm kind of weirdly proud of, because we're going to be talking about women and their cycles, which is not something that you probably come across very often on LinkedIn, but it is very much a part of our lives. So before we get started, let me know where you're listening from in the comments. We would love to know. And also, don't be shy about asking questions. Again, this is a space where we are meant to open up the doors of conversations like these to really help you succeed in all the ways that you could possibly succeed. So I want you all to welcome, I'm going to bring her on here in just a moment. Our She Rocks guest for today is Kaylee. She's an Ayurvedic fertility specialist, helping women live in alignment with their menstrual cycles. Yes, alignment. And embrace the power of their periods. I mean, I didn't know that could be a thing until I met her. And then as soon as I did, I was like, okay, we have to get you on. We need to talk about this because I feel like we spent our whole life fighting against it, right? She herself personally struggled for years with her reproductive health. When she found Ayurvedic medicine, she was able to balance her hormones, heal her cycle, and strengthen her fertility, and is now passionate about other women doing the same, which is why she's here with you today. She's here with us today. She's been studying Ayurveda and medicine's women's health for 10 years. She graduated from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in 2011. She studies the birth and bereavement with Still Birth Day and became an Ayurvedic postpartum professional through the Newborn Mothers Collective. She believes in learning, that it is a lifelong pursuit, and continues her education in Ayurvedic and Ayurvedic yoga therapy through Yoga Veda Institute. I love all that you're doing, Kaylee. And also, I should mention, Kaylee is a member. So thank you so much for being here today to share all the things that you know that can hopefully help us all feel better about our cycle.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've been frustrated because I feel like as women, we're taught that cycles are something we just have to put up with and deal with and get through. And I really want to change that narrative. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to get to talk to everybody today. I have some really great information that I want to share with you guys. But before I get started, I kind of wanted to get to know you a little bit better. So I'm going to ask a couple questions. If you feel me, if it's a yes, please type into the chat so I can see. Yeah. How many of you love your period and get excited about your period every month? Anyone? Does anyone feel that way? Yes. I know it's not usually something that women are excited about. So how many of you dread your period? Maybe you say things like, I hate having to deal with this. I hate this time of the month. I know for myself, I've even said things like, I hate being a woman when it comes to that time of the month. Yep. Anybody else?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's great to get to know you guys and see where you guys stand in all this. Like I said, my goal today is to kind of change the narrative, change the way you think about periods and your cycle in general. And I really want you to be able to harness the power of your cycle and get it to work for you instead of fighting against it. So I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see the presentation that I made for you. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep. And again, as you all are listening, I'm going to go on mute and just take everything in because I know you have a lot of amazing wisdom to share. Don't be afraid to ask questions in the chat. When you're asking questions, you're not just asking for yourself, you're asking for somebody else who doesn't have maybe the courage to ask. So don't be afraid to ask.
Great. So what we're going to talk about today is what I call the ABCs of harnessing your cycle. This is a 3-phase system that I've come up with that has really helped me and has helped other women as well. So things you're going to learn, you're going to get to know yourself and your cycle on a much deeper level. You're going to learn how to nourish yourself and take care of business differently throughout the month, throughout your cycle, in a way that aligns with your cycle instead of against it. And ultimately, all of this is going to help you be able to achieve more success with less effort in any area of your life. So whether that's business, being a mom, or maybe you want to start a family, maybe you're trying to conceive, this is going to help you with that as well. So who am I? A little bit about me. My journey really started when I was a young girl. In high school, I struggled really bad with painful periods and acne and depression every month when my period would come about. And I went to the Western medical doctors and I asked them for help, to figure out what was going on. And most of them told me that nothing was wrong, that this was fairly normal, and that it was just something I was going to have to get used to and deal with for the rest of my life. They also offered me birth control pills to help mitigate some of the symptoms. And at the time I didn't know any better, so I took the pills and they did not help anything. They often just caused more symptoms than they did any good. I actually became pregnant with my oldest son while I was on birth control pills. He's now 11. And after I gave birth to him, I started having all sorts of new reproductive struggles that I hadn't experienced before. I was hospitalized twice for cysts on my ovaries bursting. And it was the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. So after that, the doctors again wanted to put me on more hormones, more birth control pills to try to control the cysts. But at this point, I had studied health and wellness for a couple years, and I really did not want to put any more hormones into my body. So I told the doctors no, I wasn't going to take their pills. And I continued struggling with the cysts. I then experienced multiple miscarriages. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever been through in my life. I started to give up hope of ever being a mom again. I started to think that my body was not cooperating with me at all and, was failing me. After the 4th miscarriage, I was hospitalized again with a severe pelvic infection. I had to be in the hospital for a few days on high doses of antibiotics. When I finally healed from that, I went back to check in with the doctor and I got the diagnosis of being infertile. He told me I would never have children again. He told me that my fallopian tubes were so inflamed that they would be like that for the rest of my life. And that the only way that he could help me and control the cysts and things that I was dealing with was, again, to put me on high estrogen birth control. But anybody who knows me knows that I am very stubborn. And when he told me that, I looked at him and said, challenge accepted. And I walked out of there with no medications and dove headfirst into finding a natural way to heal my body. I had heard about Ayurvedic medicine briefly through studying at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and it had always really intrigued me. So I decided that that was going to be the route that I took. And I studied everything I could get my hands on. I completely overhauled my diet and my lifestyle. I did a very intense cleanse. And 6 months later, I was pregnant with my youngest son, Jackson. So what is Ayurveda? Ayurveda is an ancient form of health and healing from India. It's over 5,000 years old, and it's been continuously practiced for all 5,000 of those years. Ayurveda literally means the science of life in Sanskrit. What I love about Ayurveda and what makes it so different is that it really encompasses both body, mind, and spirit. It's not just about healing physical wounds. It's really starting to gain some traction here in the US because it is considered to be the sister science of yoga, and yoga is becoming so big. Ayurveda actually came first, and you'll find that a lot of Ayurvedic practitioners recommend yoga as a tool to heal and maintain health in different aspects. Some of the other things that make Ayurvedic different than Western medicine is that it really honors each individual. It sees us each as our own unique makeup, and it realizes that you cannot prescribe one lifestyle or one diet or one drug to everyone and get the same results. It also really fosters self-awareness. So it encourages individuals to take charge of their own health and well-being, to really get to know yourself and your body and how it reacts to different things, and experiment with that and see what works for you, not just to take some medical professional's word for it. The other reason it's different is because it really looks at the root causes of disease and disorders instead of just working with the symptoms. But even before that, it really focuses on prevention over healing. How can we live in a way that's going to keep us healthy and is going to keep us from getting diseases ahead of time instead of just trying to heal them afterwards? And the last thing that's very, very unique about Ayurveda is that it really helps us to live in alignment with nature. It really focuses on working with the different cycles of nature, such as the day cycle, the 24-hour cycle, or the moon cycles, or the seasonal yearly cycles that we go through. You know, it helps us to eat different and live differently in spring versus the way we do in fall. You know, here in Ohio, we experience each one of those seasons very distinctly, and we can tell you that they're very different. And if you eat and act the same way through all four of them, your body's going to struggle. I also like that it brings up the moon cycles, because for those of you, if anyone on this call is not actually cycling anymore, maybe you're past menopause, you can focus on using the moon and follow the moon cycles to work with that, and you're going to get the same benefits as the rest of us. So the ABC system, it really is kind of a three-phase system. I would say you could always jump to C, but you're not going to get the same results as if you followed them in order. So the first step is awareness. We want to become deeply aware of our own body, mind, spirit, and cycle. We want to find out what our normal is, what our healthy point is, so that way we know where to come back to when we get off track. Balance, the next step. We're going to take baby steps to get us as close to that normal as we can and keep us there for as long as we can. And then cycle optimization. this is taking it to the next level. This is where you're going to use what you've learned about yourself and really plan your life around your cycle and make your cycle run smoother and make your life run smoother. So a little fun fact before we get into it. On average, women spend 6.25 years of your life on your period.
Oh, that's, yeah, I feel that.
That's a lot of time. If you think about it, most women start menstruating around the age of 13. We go until about 51. So that's about 456 periods throughout your life. 2,280 days of your life are spent bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's a difficult time for you, if you dread that every single month, that's a big chunk of your life that you're giving away your power. You're giving away to dread and pain and whatever else may be coming up for you. So I encourage us to reclaim those 6 years for good. Okay, so the first step, the first phase is the awareness phase. In Ayurveda, self-awareness is the foundation of all health. The more you know about yourself and how you react to different stimulus, whether it's food or your environment or other people or emotions, the better choices you're going to be able to make. So the first step in this, I tell everyone, is start a food journal. Now, most of us have heard of a food journal at some point in time. A lot of us have maybe tried it here or there when we're trying to do diets and whatnot. But I suggest taking it a step further. So when you're writing down your food, don't just write down what it is that you're eating. Note the time that you're eating. Note the emotions that you were having before you started eating and the emotions you had after eating. Where are you eating? What is the environment like? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it loud? Is it quiet? And then another taboo topic, I'm all about the taboo, is make note of your elimination. Make note of how you're processing the food.
That's really interesting, Kaylee. But really quickly, do you have any recommendations? Are there like either apps or physical like journals that have like a good kind of all-encompassing food tracking and journaling? Because when I think about most of them, obviously, especially as women, we get targeted with the ones that are all about weight loss. And this is obviously something that's so much deeper than. So in order to make sure that you are kind of tracking all those things, do you have any recommendations for either apps or journals?
I have not been able to find a good app. I have tried for years.
Yeah.
If anybody is an app developer and wants to make one, I am happy to help you. So I always just recommend getting a small notebook that will fit in like your purse so that you can take it with you everywhere, and just making notes of all these things. And it's not something sometimes people get overwhelmed when I say this. It's adding so much more to your to-do list, but it's not like it's going to be something that you have to do forever. We're just going to do it for maybe 2 weeks to really get a good understanding of how things are going. If you want to make changes, you have to know where you're starting.
That's a good point. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So right along inside that same journal, and that's another reason why I kind of just say a notebook, because then you can do this all in the same place. I also suggest start tracking your cycles. I don't know if everyone does this. For me, it's a daily process now. I know when I was younger, I had no idea when my cycle was coming. I was never prepared. I did not know anything about when anything happened. I would go to the doctors and they would ask me, when was your last cycle? And I'd be like, I'm just going to pick a day because I have no clue.
I haven't done that though. Oh, it's so true. You'll see.
Yeah. So definitely start just paying attention. You don't even have to change and don't change anything yet. Just start taking notes about when your cycle starts, your energy levels on different days. Your mental clarity is a good thing to start taking notes of throughout the month. your appetite.
I was going to say brain fog as we get older too. Like Kaylee, I think that's so important. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I nerd out about this so much.
Yeah. So it definitely changes throughout the month.
Yeah.
And if you're not tracking and you don't know where you're at in your cycle, you may start experiencing some brain fog, and you may be like, you may get frustrated with yourself and not understand why you're feeling this way. Whereas if you start tracking and every single month around day 26, I start getting foggy, then you know how to prepare for day 26. So it's so great to just keep track of these things, at least for a couple months, so that you can kind of start seeing some patterns emerge. Cravings are another one that I love to track. Libido is definitely a big sign or symptom of things. So those are all good things to just take notes of in your journal. I will say I don't track all of this every single month, especially now that I know myself pretty well. But sometimes if I notice like, oh my gosh, my cravings are crazy today and it seems abnormal, I'll make sure to make a note of it in my journal so I can go back later and see maybe there might be some correlation as to what was going on. So then the last piece of the awareness is learning your dosha. In Ayurveda, we believe that everybody has their own unique makeup, and we call that your dosha. This is kind of like your unique personal measurement of health. I like to tell people it's kind of like your North Star. If you're going sailing, you're never going to sail your ship in a straight line. It's always you're going to have ups and downs and twists and turns along your journey. But if you have that North Star and you know where you're heading towards, you can always readjust your route and realign to your North Star. That's what your dosha is going to do for you. So what exactly is a dosha? Well, Ayurveda sees the world through what we call 20 different qualities. For instance, hot and cold, light and dark, dry and moist. Those are qualities. When those qualities start getting together and combining, they create elements. The 5 elements, so earth, air, fire, water, and space. And then when those elements start connecting and getting together, they form your dosha. Everyone is made up of a different proportion of these 3 doshas. No one is only going to just be one, but you most likely will have one that is predominant for you. So Vata dosha is the air and space dosha. Those are the elements that are associated with the Vata dosha. Some of the qualities that are associated with Vata are light, dry, mobile, and clear. So a person that maybe is Vata predominant is usually going to be very creative, but they might have some scattered attention. They tend to be very thin in their body, and they may even struggle to gain weight or maintain their weight. The Pitta is going to be the fire and water elements. Some qualities that are associated with Pitta dosha are quick and sharp, hot, and liquid. A person who is Pitta predominant is usually going to be very quick-witted, have a fiery temper. They tend to be very ambitious and driven. And their build tends to be more on the medium side. They might gain muscle quickly, but they never usually have a problem gaining or losing weight. Kapha is the water and earth elements. Some qualities that are associated with the Kapha dosha are slow or dull, moist, cold, solid, or cloudy. People who tend to be Kapha predominant are often very content and grounded. They're slow to anger. They're also slow to make decisions. They like to really think things through before they make a decision. They also tend to have a larger build and more round features. So now that you have an idea of what your dosha is and you're starting to get to know yourself a lot better, then we move on to the balance phase. Now, this is where we're going to take some small steps to try to get us closer to our original dosha. And we're going to start by identifying any imbalances. So when we are discovering your dosha, we really focus on how you've been for most of your life. Now that might vary. Like I said, on your ship, you're going to go back and forth. So currently you might have some imbalances. You might have gained some extra weight. You might have some dry skin that you didn't experience when you were younger. Maybe your hair is getting thinner, which wasn't something you experienced when you were younger. Those are all imbalances in your dosha. And those are what we're going to work to bring back to alignment. So how we identify some of those imbalances with Ayurveda is we look at the tongue. A lot of times your tongue can tell you a lot about what is going on inside of your body. If you have a white coating on your tongue, that tends to be a sign that you have some buildup toxins in your system that we need to get working to eliminate. We also look at your elimination. Like I said, I'm all about talking about the taboos. So we're going to talk about poop. It's one of the best ways to know how your digestion is working. If it's working well, if you're getting nutrients out of your food, or if it's struggling. Your skin is also a really great indicator. If you are having dry skin, if you're getting acne, if you are having any sort of rashes or eczema-like patches on your skin, that all tells us that there's some toxins going on and there's some imbalances that we need to look at. And then the last way that we can tell is your actual menstruation. The blood itself is like the fifth vital sign for women. It really is a great sign as to your overall health and what's going on. So if there is some major imbalances going on or some toxic buildup in Ayurveda, I almost always recommend doing a guided cleanse with an Ayurvedic practitioner supervising and talking you through it. This is not going to be like a crazy diet or crazy like juice cleanse where you're not going to eat anything for days. You're going to eat food, but it's going to be very basic food that is very easily digestible to really give your system a complete break so that your digestive system can relax and your body can eliminate all of those toxins that have built up without adding any new toxins in for a few days. Then we're going to use opposites to balance these imbalances. So this kind of goes back to those qualities that we talked about. Say, for instance, you're having some acne on your face. Acne is inflammation, which is hot. It's going to be a pitta element. The way we can balance that is with cooling foods and cooling face washes. I love face wash with coconut oil in it for acne because coconut oil is very cooling. So we're going to use opposite qualities to balance out the imbalances. This is something that's going to be very specific for each individual. So it's hard for me to just tell you exactly what you need to do because, like I said, Ayurveda really understands that we're all extremely different. But I will tell you that, if you're having dry skin, that's a sign that you need more moisture both on your skin and in your diet. If your digestion seems to be moving very slow, that's a sign that you might need more pitta aggravating foods, like spicy foods possibly, or heating foods. If your digestion is moving very fast, then you're going to want the opposite. You're going to want more heavy, solid foods to slow it down. Does that make sense to everybody?
I was going to say, Monica had been asking about what kinds of foods, but I think you went right into explaining what kinds of foods. It obviously just varies based upon where the imbalance is. And it sounds like with, some medicines or some treatments or some other approaches, it's like like to like. With Ayurvedic, it's more the opposite. You're trying to create that balance. So it's like whatever you're experiencing, you kind of want to treat with the opposing type of foods. So I think that hopefully that answered your question, Monica.
Yeah. So you're definitely you're gonna look at opposites. And if you have more specific questions, Monica, I'm happy to chat with you after the talk and I can help you out.
Yeah, you guys are both on our Slack for members, so you guys can chat.
Yeah. So the other way that I like to remind women that we need to balance, especially business women, I know a lot of women in our group, we need to look at the yin and yang energies of our life. So what that means is the feminine and the masculine. We've been trained that we need to constantly focus on the yang, the go, the get things done. And we don't take enough time to slow down and really restore our energies. So the yang energy is the masculine energy. It's going to be energizing and activating and motivating. It's going to consist of qualities like hot, bright, fast, mobile. A lot of times this includes things like making deals, playing sports, eating spicy foods. It's responsible for our metabolism, for transforming the food that we eat into energy, and it's got a reducing quality. So you can imagine if you're constantly reducing, you're going to run out of energy. We have to bring in that yin, that feminine energy, the restorative energy to build us back up. So the yin is nourishing, building, and restorative. It's going to consist of qualities like cool, dark, slow, stable, and moist. A lot of things, activities that are yin are going to be sleeping, getting a massage, doing slow yoga, eating oatmeal. So it's all of those things that are going to be nourishing, building, and restoring to our energy.
I was going to say, I think I've been practicing yoga, kind of just a home practice, since I was 18, so more than 20 years now. And I only just started learning about yin yoga. And I really do, in a weird way, find it energizing. Even in the mornings, I know some people are like, it puts me back to sleep, but I love those deeper, longer stretches. So if you've never done any kind of yoga before, or if you're new to yoga, or even if you've been like me practicing for a while, didn't know about it, I love yin yoga. It's been really, really nice to start my mornings. And then also, I did want to mention, because you talked about sleep. Today is International Sleep Day. And I think sleep health and sleep hygiene in general, being a working mom, a business owner, like I sacrifice so much of my mental time, energy, and nearly sanity on not getting enough sleep. I really do wish we could do a whole nother She Rocks just on the importance of sleep. It is the time that your body regenerates itself. And so like I do find, I don't know if this is normal or not, Kaylee, but when I am around my time of my cycle, I sleep a lot more.
Yes, me too.
But no, I think all that makes so much sense. And I love, like you said, that balance, because again, this highly competitive space that we all work within, digital advertising, marketing, there is a lot of that, that more of the opposite energy. That things like this, times like this, discussions like this, Kaylee, are the kinds of things that I want for our members. I know it's not a comfortable thing for people to always talk about, but it's such a needed thing for that balance that you're talking about. So this has all been really helpful so far. I hope all of you are finding it as fascinating as I am.
Yes, I think that we have been taught that we have to hustle. We have to constantly hustle to achieve success. And that's one of the key things I want you guys to take away from this today, is that there's a time for hustle. Yes. And I'll show you in a minute where in your cycle that is going to be the best. But there's also a time for extra sleep and yin yoga and restoring. And if you don't take time for that, you're going to burn out. You're going to reduce until there's nothing left. Whereas if you work with your cycle and you plan the hustle when your body's ready to hustle, you're going to get more done in less time.
So exciting. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's keep going then.
Okay. I wish it would let me know. Okay, so this is the fun part, the cycle optimization. This is where the magic happens. This is, so after you've learned about yourself, you've really taken note of the different patterns that you see going on for yourself throughout the month. And you've also gotten some skills to help balance anything that might be imbalanced. Any of those struggles, any of the acne, the cramps, we're working to balance those in the previous phase, maybe with the help of a practitioner. Now you get to optimize your cycle for your life. You're going to start scheduling your life in alignment with what you now know are the patterns of your cycle. Business activities, social activities, the type of exercise that you do should change throughout the month. So these are the 4 phases of your cycle. I always like to start with follicular because it is like the springtime of you. Especially here in Ohio, we're experiencing the springtime on the outside right now. So this is a great place to start. Now you'll notice that each of these phases also has a dosha that is associated with it. I put that up there because when we're talking about the balancing, I want you to be aware that kapha can become aggravated or you might have too much kapha during your follicular phase. So that's something to be aware of. Activities that are great to schedule during your follicular phase are anything that's brainstorming, planning, and starting new projects. This is a great time to map out that big presentation you want to do. The type of exercise that you want to do during your follicular phase is going to be cardio or fun, like dancing kind of workouts. You're going to have a lot more energy during this phase than you might in some other phases. So it's a great time to start something new as far as exercise goes.
Really quickly, for those who aren't that in tune with what each of these phases entail, like, I mean, you do this day in and day out, and I know that some people who are listening right now don't know the difference in the timing of each of these phases. So your follicular phase is when in your cycle?
So your follicular phase is going to be right after you stop bleeding. And it's going to last for 7 to 14 days.
Awesome.
Depending on, everyone's a little different. I like to say 12 days, give it about 2 weeks. And like I said, this is going to be when you feel a surge of energy. You're going to want to try new things, start new projects. The foods that I suggest during this phase are going to be light meals, maybe some spicy foods, or using some warming spices like cinnamon or cumin, because like I said, this is the kapha phase. So you might, if you're not careful, if you don't pay attention, you might start feeling a little bit too heavy or weighed down during this phase. So then after your follicular phase, around day 12 to 14, usually you move into your ovulation phase. Now, actual ovulation only lasts for 1 day. It's a brief thing, but we call the few days around that moment your ovulation phase, because you're definitely going to feel different in your body for a few days. This is like the summertime. I tell everyone this is when you're going to be your hottest, both physically and metaphorically. You're going to attract a lot of attention. You're going to want to communicate and be out and talk to people more. This is a great time for collaborating or being visible in your business. It's a great time for scheduling talks. So I made Amy schedule this talk on the 19th because I knew I was going to be in my ovulation phase today. So this is also a great time for more intense workouts. This is where your energy is going to be its highest. So intense workouts, HIIT classes, spin classes, boot camp type workouts. This is when you're going to want to do that. This is also going to be when you want to hustle. We talked about there's going to be a time for hustle and a time for rest. The follicular phase and the ovulation phases are when you're going to want to hustle, especially in your business and work. Some foods that are great during this time are cooling foods because you are going to be running a little bit hotter. I love to eat my smoothies during this phase. I don't do smoothies the rest of the month, but this is when I like to have smoothies. Herbal teas, especially like peppermint tea, are great this time of the month. I try my best to avoid coffee during my ovulation phase because coffee is very heating. And if I'm already hot, that tends to be when I start to get breakouts, I noticed.
It's funny, the ovulation phase you mentioned. I remember a Together Digital Summit, or no, I'm sorry, conference. Like, I want to say it was 2018. I don't know how many of you guys are listening that actually saw this. And it was a really cool talk. I'll have to find it for you, Kaylee, and send it to you. But it was a woman who does research. I can't remember what university that she was with. And they did this year-long study where they just took photographs of women coming into, like, just walking by. Every day. They would ask them, can we take your picture, please? And they would try to kind of catch the same women, or they had the same group of women that they would kind of catch, take their picture, and then have them move on. And as they looked at it, what they noticed that they could do was actually track her cycle based upon how she was dressing herself. She would dress in lighter clothing because she was running hotter if she was around ovulation time. Right. Lower necklines, higher hemlines, all these different things. It was so fascinating. And one of the things I loved about her talk was that she opened with this notion about how women are perceived or conveyed as being overly emotional and up and down and all these different things. But actually, if you kind of look at it, there is that one time where we see a spike in sort of our hormonal reactions to things. And it is in and around that time. And then we level back out. Whereas men, it's like constantly running high. It's just all hormones. It's all they're just all
right.
I was like,
that's why. That's why this is so important because we go through phases, but if you are paying attention and you know where you're at, you don't have to impulsively react on those emotions.
Yeah.
We'll talk about, so getting into the luteal phase, for me, I know I overreact about things a lot during my luteal phase. It's a more emotional time for me. I get a little bit more judgmental. I take things a little bit more personally, but I know this about myself. Mm-hmm. And so I have created what I call my worry journal. Mm-hmm. And especially during this phase, if I start worrying about things or worrying about my relationship with certain people or worrying about how I'm going to handle such and such situation, I write it down in my worry journal. And then I look at it in my follicular phase.
Oh, cool.
When I'm not so emotional and I can think more clearly. And then I can come up with a logical plan on how to address it if it needs addressed. Most of the time they don't need addressed and they were just silly things to begin with. But if I write it down, then I don't have to think about it. It's not taking up headspace and I'm not going to actually react on it or act on it and then regret saying or doing something later. I just write it down and tell myself that I'll deal with it during a better phase. Mm-hmm. And then when it's that phase, it doesn't need to be dealt with. So the luteal phase is very much like the fall time. It's when things start cooling down. You start wanting to get cozy and go inward. This tends to be a vata time. So cold, dry tends to come up. And this is a great time for focusing more on small, detail-oriented projects or finishing up those projects that maybe you started in your follicular phase. Those end pieces, tying the loose ends together, maybe not super collaborative or needing to communicate with a lot of people. This is a great time to sit at your computer and just work by yourself. This is also a really good time for strength training. If that's something that you're into, more slower paced training, or yoga and Pilates is a great thing to try out during this phase as well. Foods I like to encourage during this phase are warm, moist foods. Because it tends to be a more vata season of your cycle, you want to bring in warm, moist qualities as much as you can to balance out those vata so that it doesn't get out of hand. I love to make, gruel in the morning or oats, something warm to start my day with during this time of my cycle. And you can always throw some really great seeds in there as well. If you are into seed cycling, I've just recently started that and it's been amazing. So that's a whole nother talk.
Really quickly, Sydney had a quick question. You had said it earlier, but she didn't write it down. She couldn't write it down fast enough. She said, how long does the ovulation phase normally last?
So anywhere between 2 to 5 days. It's different for everyone, but once you start really tracking those energy levels, you'll notice how long your ovulation phase tends to be. Okay. For me, I want to say on the most regular basis, it's about 3. The luteal phase, again, is going to be a little bit different for everybody. I personally have a very short luteal phase, but it tends to be around 12 days again, I think. I'm doing the math right. And math is not my strong suit.
No worries.
So then the luteal phase is really preparing your body and getting ready to either be pregnant or shed your lining and start all over. So you're really going to feel your energy slow down. This is a great time to start scheduling some extra sleep hours. And then you're going to move into your menstrual phase if you aren't pregnant. And this is going to be like the winter season of you. This is a great time to hibernate, cuddle up, stay home as much as you can. I block out 3 days on my calendar every month. I call them my dark days. I don't schedule any social interactions. I don't go out. I try to avoid all contact with people on those days because I just know that is what makes me feel the best. If I have to try to get dressed and go out and talk to everyone, it's hard for me. It's a great time for some rest and reflection. Take notes, look through your journal. This is a great time to look through all these notes that you've been taking through the month and start to pay attention to the patterns, make notes about the patterns so that way you can plan next month a little bit better. Exercise wise, this is perfect time to slow down and focus on the stretching and the yin yoga. Maybe don't even exercise and just do some like foam rolling to roll out your muscles or just get extra sleep. Like Amy said, sleep is so important. And I know people who are super into fitness and want to build muscles and all of that. You need the sleep part in order to restore your muscles so they can rebuild themselves. So if you're not getting enough sleep during the first 3 phases, this is when you should schedule some extra time. And this could last anywhere from 3 to 7 days, depending on who you are. This is a great time for really nourishing whole foods. I love bone broth, both in the luteal phase and the menstrual phase. Bone broth is the superfood for women and cycle health. But it's also okay to give in to your cravings during this period. I want to give you permission to eat some ice cream if that's what your body wants. I struggled with this for a really long time. I had to work on giving myself permission to give in to cravings during my cycle. I would start craving dairy. I would start craving like yogurts and ice creams and butter and all sorts of dairy. And most of the time I don't eat those things. And I really found out that my body was craving some of that vitamin D and those nutrients that are in the dairy that I wasn't getting the rest of the month. I really needed it during my cycle. And so I've allowed myself to start giving into those cravings for those few days. And so I encourage you guys to do the same. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see that I put the moon phases. Because like I said, if you are on this call and you're not having a cycle anymore, you still are, you're just not menstruating. Your hormones still do fluctuate throughout the month. And you can still work with them in order to make your life run smoother. The way I suggest doing that is pay attention to the moon. Usually, women are highly sensitive to the moon. And a lot of times, if we know it or don't know it, our cycles are synced up with the moon cycles. So the menstrual phase would be around the new moon time when the moon is black. And then it grows as you go into your follicular phase. And then when the moon is full, that would be like your ovulation phase. And then it wanes as it goes through the luteal phase.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the ABCs of harnessing the power of your cycle. So you have learned how to really dive deep and become deeply aware of yourself and your body and your cycle. You've learned a little bit about how you can start to bring yourself back into balance when you start noticing imbalances. Mm-hmm. Again, this is something that's super individualized, and you might want to work with a practitioner or a doctor on this. Mm-hmm. And then the last phase is optimizing your cycle to make your life work with it in alignment with your cycle, make your cycle work for you so that you can hustle when you need to hustle and rest when you need to rest and achieve more by doing so.
That's so cool. This was so fun and insightful. Thank you so much. Again, we're open for questions. We've got a few minutes left. If anybody has any, please drop them in the comments. And I mean, again, on this topic, I don't know how many of you know this, but my first year of college and where I spent like the first 3 or 4 years of my career was in healthcare. And the reason why I sort of started to move away from was because I was learning that there was just kind of this imbalance of how women were being treated or diagnosed. My mom also has like a whole history of health and chronic pain issues. And just experiencing all of that has made me very curious about like this more sense of holistic health. So again, not saying there's anything bad about traditional medicine and talking to your doctor, but also I think as women, there's just something about Ayurvedic medicine, especially that I feel like is more in tune with how we are as women. That, maybe modern or westernized medicine kind of seems to ignore. And we're actually going to have like a whole panel discussion on this coming up. So next Thursday, we are doing our virtual summit called Power Moves. And we're going to be talking about everything from negotiation, imposter syndrome while job seeking, how to like really leverage digital for your brand, just some really, really great talks, workshops, panels. But one of those panels in particular is going to be all about how we can take control of our health and healthcare as women, because it's such an important aspect of how we are able to show up at work. And I know that all of you are looking to grow and be better personally and professionally. And I just don't think you can do that when, like you said earlier, Kaylee, when you're running on empty, when your body doesn't have what you need. I know for sure your mind cannot show up in like peak performance. And so I love that you were willing to come on and share what you know with us, and that all of you were willing to be here for a conversation that's normally not something that gets shared on like LinkedIn, but I love that we're talking about it. Cassie did have a quick question. What free quizzes do you suggest to figure out our dosha type?
Yeah, so there's lots of free quizzes on the internet. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that a lot of them are very basic, and you're going to get an idea, but it's not going to really dive deep. If this really interests you and you really want to dive deep into finding your true dosha, I really suggest working with a practitioner, doing a initial assessment with a practitioner. If you're interested in learning more about Ayurveda, I am creating a group called Elemental Women's Wellness Collective. It's free to join. It's going to be a place of community and education. I love sharing what I know, and I love helping women. I love answering all of your questions. So if you want to text cycle to that number on the screen, 855-537-1401, that will sign you up to be a Wellness Women's Collective VIP. It'll send you a little prompt to get you into the Facebook group where you'll get complete access to me, and we can chit chat and talk about whatever you want. And then also it'll ask for your email address. If you want to give me your email, I will send you the dosha quiz that I use for my clients.
That's so great. Oh, awesome. Kaylee, I'm so excited for all of you. I hope this helps. It sounds like from the comments, everybody found this really helpful, insightful, and enlightening.
Good.
So I hope it helps you on your journey that you're on. Again, it's been a crazy year. So balance and wellness is such a big, important topic for women, especially, I feel like. So I really appreciate you, Kaylee, taking the time to share your knowledge with us. Again, if you're a member, reach out to her. You know how to find her, easy through Slack. And until then, we will see you all next week. Next week, we are meeting with the founder of Inner Ally. She is a delightful, delightful woman who has a background in psychology and organizational research and studies, where she is really helping especially women to work to tame that inner critic. So if you have that constant nagging voice inside your head all day long that is making it nearly impossible for you to move things forward, I'd highly recommend that you come back and see us again next week. Until then, everyone, rest up, have a good weekend, and thank you again, Kaylee. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.